it was either my junior, I think it was my junior year. Yeah, because I only did 3 years of French. And those of you that don't know, my name Swa comes actually from my real name, which is François in French. It's like the French Frank or John or Peter or something.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, in French class, I only took 3 years. And it was that year that for our final we had to do.
Welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm lying. There's no up today. He's currently helping his mother dealing with some things, but everything's okay. We are here joined by our wonderfully esteemed guest. Who are you?
Swa.
Wow, thank you very much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you, by the way.
Absolute pleasure to meet you too. I've watched a lot of you. That sounds really weird. I've watched a lot of, I watched maybe 80% ish of the episodes. So
Oh,
glad to be here. So
thank you
yeah.
very much. It's an honor. I'm glad you enjoy it. Cool. So let's just start with the meat and potatoes of the conversation. What are you most known for, and how'd you get into everything and into VRChat?
Ooh, oh my goodness. Yeah, that is something. Since you would ask me to come onto the show, that I tried to kind of like summarize or
If it's a long
kind of like
conversation, go
encapsulate
for it.
into.
Go for the long
Oh
conversation.
yeah,
I'm
no, no,
down for
no.
that.
Yeah, but what am I most known for? I mean, there's a couple things that like people come out of the woodwork and will randomly encounter in VR. They're like, "Oh, I saw your avatar video," or "I saw," because I like doing videos and sharing knowledge with the community. So, uh, it's either that, or it's from music events, or it's um, from other kind of like forum post responses and knowledge share stuff. So it's a lot of like the world creating community, and of course like the music stuff because music's in my name, so that would lend itself to being music related too. So
Understandable.
yeah. So that was the first part. So what I'm known for, and then how I got into VR chat. Right? Was
VRChat
the other
and
one?
what you do, both. What what you got you into the platform, and how did that lead to what you do now? Is like a best way to
Mm.
ask that question.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, it's like 5 years, not probably not to the date, but around this time in 2020 is when I started really getting on VR chat a lot more often.
Hmm.
But I had I had downloaded it 2019 when I bought the Quest 1. A lot of people starting with Quest 1, and so that was kind of all I knew. Um, It's funny because the first time I downloaded VR chat, I got on and I'm like, what is there to like? I didn't get it because it wasn't really. Maybe I just didn't realize at the time that it was all user generated content. I didn't know that it wasn't like a, a double A or triple A studio making a game for VR. And so there were a few worlds I went around and like I was just climbing on stuff, hip thrusting, with tracking being lost. No, but no, yeah, I didn't get it, and then I just played like the first few introductory Quest 1 games, like Super Hot, Beat Saber, and then the Star Wars Vader games and all that. Um, and yeah, and then I was like, whoa, whoa, oh,
Whoa,
sorry about that.
it's
Yeah, I
okay.
was just getting my stretches in, VR stretches.
It's okay.
Uh,
It
but
wouldn't it wouldn't be
hmm?
VRChat without fun little full body bugs like going to the moon or down to the void.
Right, right. Yeah, I think I'm gonna use that one from now on though. When I do it randomly, it's just like, oh, sorry guys, it's been a while since I did my VR stretches. um, uh, but yeah. So then tail end of 2019, I had come back and I moved back home. I was working in Nevada, uh, at a Tesla Gigafactory doing production work. Like it was like grunt work, like inventory and production line stuff. Then I got a job offer to come back home, work at the Apple store here, worked there. January came around, got sick. I was putting music out, and I was like really, really sick. I didn't know what it was. Then a couple months later, was like, hey, we're locking down the entire world. And at that same time, putting the headset back on and like it finally clicking that, oh, wait, you can make anything and upload it. Wait a minute, I have music that I want to put out that I've been, it's been on the shelf. So I like remastered it. I saw this. Actually, the first thing that kicked it off was this video from 2019 BlenderCon with Ian Hubert, awesome like VFX guy, and it was that video that really like kicked me into high gear with learning Blender, Unity, and then at that time Udon was just being released, so I was just pulling from a bunch of sources, learning things, and then yeah, just venturing out into the community more, and it was May of 2020 is when I put out my very first world, and it's like a music experience with stuff that animates to the songs, and it's a cool like little 30-40 minute experience, and going back and showing friends, like it's awesome in one regard where it's like, wow, this is what I came from, and like look at what I'm making now, it's the whole arc of progression and all that, and it's cool to as like a reminder of where I came from. So but yeah, it wasn't until maybe that new year 2020, I think beginning 2021 is when because I wasn't even part of music community at all. Like I was just on my own, sequestered in my own little, I don't know, monolith island in VRChat, just kind of like not really like making well, no, that's a lie. I did make one really good friend, and that led to delving into doing some world creation for a couple of the Star Wars communities. And so I met one good friend from that, Swagdemite, still good friend today. We don't hang out as much, but it's, how it is. It's like, hangouts are transient and stuff, and you start getting busy and working and stuff. So, but those friendships never grow too far apart, So you can just reconnect, and it's just like, you were hanging out yesterday, even though it's been a couple years or so. So, yeah, it was in that time, tail end of 2020, going into 2021, that a couple of those friends I made, they said, "Oh man, we're at this club. I think it was at the time it was Rizumu or something," and I was like, "No, what? There's no way. Like, I know. Like, I've been working on world stuff. That's crazy. There's no way you could be doing like music and like all this." And so, especially it was like the real time part. And then come to find out, it's just people streaming from Twitch and whatnot. So yeah, that was kind of like the start of being introduced that there's like a club and music scene and people doing music. And the very first set that I saw it was just before the new year, and I want to say it was Benny Bean playing the guitar with like incorporating that into his DJ set, and it was like, I was like, okay, that's cool. That's more than just like pushing some buttons, moving some platters, and playing the guitar. It was like super cool. I'm pretty sure it was Benny Bean, but anybody watching, if Benny, if you're watching and that wasn't you, then comment. But if it was, then I remember that. So, but yeah, and then yeah, the New Year Eve event, like small but yet large group of us. Kind of that's like the event we go back to and talk about, like, oh, it's our friendiversary, like even this last year. I'm sure you've heard of Tube.
Yes.
The club Tube, Hadian. He was one of the good friends. that we still like work together today on projects like stuff outside of VRChat even, you know. So yeah, um, yeah, Hadian is like Hadian and Sly. I'm sure you heard Sly from Slyfest and um, uh, yeah, and then I think that was about oh, Grimecraft, Ohm3, probably a couple other names you may or may not have heard of. They're kind of like, I would say like ancient legend, kind of like no one sees them around anymore because they're doing stuff outside the platform. But they were here for a good little minute and did some pretty cool things. Yeah, so that's
Ooh.
kind of how it all got started, and then it just led to a bunch of other stuff. So
Oh.
um, yeah.
So, Mask, what are some of your favorite projects you worked on, and also what are some of the earliest projects you've worked on that you remember?
Well, yeah. So the first one, like I said, was that music world, and learning all Blender, Unity, Udon, like all in the same time and everything. There was a point, so it took me about 3 months with the knowledge that I had, because there wasn't at that time many people weren't. There were older videos, so the knowledge was kind of antiquated, and um, new versions of Blender had come out, so different plugins like weren't working. So kind of had to like cobble together my own way of doing things, and still while kind of like searching obsessively for documentation from other people that have made VR games or experiences and stuff. But yeah, that one's a really memorable one because I almost gave up like a couple weeks uh, before the release date because I had that all set. Like that was good to go. It's like no matter what, that was gonna release on Spotify, Apple Music, Google, whatever, all the streaming platforms. Um, but yeah, finally I did it, and then people thought it was cool. And another friend, Zeal, he's from Australia. He also like that's like one of the first things he shows a lot of people. He says, "Oh, this is my friend. My friend made this music experience," and they're like, "Oh man, you can do that in on this platform." And he's, you know, so but yeah, so that one, of course, because that's the very first. The next one was, um, it was this, it was this space called the Block, and it was inspired by, like early '90s, late '90s, kind of New York, projects, kind of like the, uh, and it's got like lowriders, and it's just set up like you feel like you're in like the, uh, like maybe like Brooklyn or something, like Brooklyn area. So it's got that vibe, and it was more catered to like hip hop. Hip hop wasn't really being played a lot and stuff, and so it was like a cool space. And then the IDA, like dance organization, they did some events there, and we have like their logo on the wall too. Did some collab events, and that came from it was like the little seed planted from you also interviewed Paul Manton.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like he kind of like just mentioned the idea, and I said, "Oh, dude, I'm down. That sounds like a cool vibe." And then so I did like all this again, going down the rabbit hole of being world creator, and uh, I was just like researching a bunch of like photos and a bunch of old videos from the '90s, and so to get like that vibe, and so made that in about a month because I had learned a bit since then, and I had took like this is like kind of random, but it like helped a lot later on. But I randomly took this like five or it was supposed to be like a 27-week course for Unity 3D artist certification, but I didn't want to pay the $90 after the trial, so I just powered through it in like 5 days. So I just, but from that I took a lot of information and knowledge and shared that with friends, and incorporated that stuff into my projects, or certain things would come up, certain situations or questions when friends were either like struggling or didn't know a feature existed in Unity. And so, yeah, a lot of that knowledge is still applicable today. But yeah, the block was another staple. Another one was, and this one is another one of those things that randomly out of nowhere people will, they'll either see or like seek me out or DM me, and they're like, it's my Serial Experiments Lane Club Siberia World, which was for another friend, Midnight Snacks, that it was like his anniversary for I think it was the 14th, because the I and the A at the end of Siberia was the 14th. So, but that's another world that did that in actually in less than a week. Just threw stuff together, got the sound effects from the show, and like used as many references to get the vibe down, and create again a musical venue and a club experience. And yeah, that was, it's another I would say like another pillar of my VRChat experience as a creator, artist. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
now, do you mind if I ask that? Because I am like so curious to know how you got into VRChat, like what first got
Well,
you in.
I'll be happy to tell you that. When I first got VRChat, I got Valve Index
Hmm.
and VR for Half-Life Alyx. That is what got me into VR. I want to
Okay.
play it because when I was in high school and when younger years, I loved Half-Life 2 and that whole game series. I was like, there's a VR game, I have to have it, and I played it. And then afterwards, I beat it in like 15 or 20 hours, and I thought, what do I do now? I just spent $1,000 on electric potato on my face. I got to find
Oh
something.
no.
And I eventually found VRChat, which lo and behold is like almost the only game in VR I play now.
Right. Yeah, same. It's like you look at the hours of VRChat compared to like all the other games, and like, yeah, it's not, it's there's no question. Like, even 2D games, I don't have as many hours as I have for VRChat, because it's like an extension of of real life in a way.
Mm,
Um
I remember.
yeah.
I only know that because very recently my friend group, whom I met earlier on in my VRChat days, decided to go into my Steam library and just started reading my hours in games of what games I play, and they've reminded me how many hours I have in VRChat, and they tried to make it a point.
They're like, dude, what's so special about this VRChat? And yeah, I tell like other friends and family that don't get it, that like you just have to try it yourself to find out. And you kind of have to get over the hurdles of the first, like, you're meeting all walks of life,
Mm,
So you're gonna get weirdos, strangers. Um yeah, you're gonna meet everyone that you never knew existed. So,
mm.
yeah.
I do have
And
to.
that's what makes it special.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I think that's some of the best charms of it too, because there's been a lot of times I've been able to meet people I would have never have been able to without VRChat, and I think that's the most fantastic thing. The things I've been able to learn and hear about's been nuts, and I appreciate every minute of it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so you mentioned something earlier that kind of made me curious as well. You said you took a course for Unity in 5 days. What is some of the most best and hardest information for you that you picked out of that when you took it in 5 days?
Oh, uh simple answer, all of it. But the um probably um the one that I was really jazzed about was, and conveniently enough, VRChat actually, uh thankful uh thankfully, Momo the monster, one of the people on the team, was like super adamant about getting what's called timeline and no, well, not timeline. That's not what it's called. You can use timeline with it, but uh, oh man, what's Cinemachine? There we go. Cinemachine. So it allows you to set up different camera angles and worlds, and have the camera follow those tracks. And a lot of people for events will set up kind of like their camera sequence that goes around the world or goes around the stage. And I've done quite a fair bit of that for Slyfest. So that's another one of the teams that I've had the honor of being a part of. And so I do like all the Cinemachine and timeline stuff for that. But yeah, that all came in super handy, or like the cool kids say, it came in clutch. Uh, um, but that, and then animation states, that also helped a lot, because that goes hand in hand with Cinemachine and timeline and all that. But yeah, trying to think. There's something else in there that keyboard shortcuts. That was another big thing, because I'm like a big keyboard shortcut person. Like everyone asks me for like Blender shortcut. Like, what's the Blender shortcut for this? I was like, oh, that. What's a Unity one for this? Oh, it's this one. So, yeah, that came in handy, for sure. So, yeah.
Okay. Something else I'm curious about as well is, you said, what got you started making music, and what about VRChat and your experiences here made you want to share it in here as well, especially in that first world you made?
Oh boy, oh boy. What got me started making music? Whew, that is a loaded question, even though it seems like it's not, because I started making music at a very young age. Um, uh, I'm trying to pinpoint exactly when. Well, let me take you back to a time when wee little Swa was a little swee, a swee lad. Yeah. So, uh, I'm just gonna go all the way back. Why not? So my family, both my mother and father. My father plays trumpet, piano. He just started learning accordion recently, and he's always learning like a new musical instrument. And then my mom's always been a singer, and she likes like the oldies and um, like classic rock. My dad's side, it's more like he likes a little bit of that, but it's more like jazz and classical. And but yeah, so it was always around music. My dad was at a very early age. I think I was like 2 or 3 or something. He like gave me a bugle or a trumpet or something, and I kind of messed around with it and like was kind of tooting a little bit, but uh, I really liked taking it and like banging on things. And so it was then that he knew that I was going to be a drummer, which I'm a drummer, mainly like a percussionist. Um, and so yeah, just being surrounded by music and all of that growing up, and also him in the early '90s, he got a job as like the computer graphics guy. And so he'd either have to bring computers home, install the operating systems with like floppy disks, and then get those all set up. So we always had like some form of like a work computer, or like go to work with him and like tinker around with the computers. And it was maybe like mid 90s, so it's probably like on like Windows 95 or 98. There were like a suite of programs. So there's like back in the day, it used to be Macromedia, Flash, Dreamweaver. There was like Photoshop, Illustrator, like all that stuff. Sound programs like Sonic Foundry. There was like Acid. There was another one. and that was like just an audio editing program called I think it was just SoundForge. And then there was like a sequencing program for doing like MIDI with musical notes and different instruments, which was called Cakewalk, and that was like Home Studio 8 or something. And so that kind of core chunk of time in like the mid to late 90s was when I really was kind of like firing on all cylinders of like, oh, I'm gonna make a cartoon animation. Oh, I'm gonna make music. Oh, I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna Photoshop that. I'm gonna um, and I think it was early 2000s is when I really was exposed to 3D software. It may have actually been into the late 90s too that I was introduced to like 3D software like 3ds Max, Softimage, Bryce 3D, and like Cinema 4D. So I was like using those, but not really like not doing it seriously. Just kind of like almost think of it as like parents will buy a kid like a bunch of like nursery toys for them to play with. But like for me, it was like the electronic computer version of that. Like if that makes sense. Is
No,
that like a good?
it
It's
makes
kind of like a
sense.
good comparison. So like yeah. So it was like I was more surrounded by that than I had a couple toys, but it was like always interested in computers, musical instruments, and all that stuff. So that's like where it really started. And when I got into high school, I was doing it a little bit like freshman, sophomore year, but it kind of tapered off. Because I was like in music, I did drumline, I did marching band, I did other things. I was in a couple computer classes, so I was able to do some video editing, and I did going out with the bang my senior year. I made like the band video um, and uh, and then yeah, and then off to college. I really didn't do. Uh, oh, I did drum corps 2007. I did some like indoor marching stuff too, and so there's always music that I kept going in the background with either getting together and playing with friends or DJing too. Like I started DJing, and funny enough, it wasn't actually. I didn't start DJing electronic music because I could not stand electronic music. Funny enough, I couldn't stand it. I couldn't. And it was a friend sophomore year that again we're like computer nerds, like this friend and I, and he introduced me to this uh, this game that was I think it was open source and I think it still is was Step Mania if you've heard of it.
Yes, I've heard of it.
And it's like yeah, it's like the DDR but for computer, and then you can load all the songs and like custom step charts and like this friend, I remember vividly seeing him like pull out like these folded pieces of paper in chemistry class, and I'm like, oh, what are those? He's like, oh, these are step charts. I'm like studying them to memorize, and they're like it was like the whole step charts on these pieces of paper, but then he pulls out another thing and it's like card stock, and he unfolds it and it's like a mini DDR machine that he had made with folded paper, and he had a slit. So then he'd take the step chart and pull it through. So it looked like a little miniature but like paper version of a DDR machine. But it was from that uh, there was electronic music. Some of it I couldn't like. It was like Gotti and like chipmunk voices. And I remember like how I felt about it. And there were some songs that I kind of liked because they didn't have electronic elements and they had more of those like organic and jazz or like hip hop R&B vibes. But it wasn't until maybe 2009 when and I know a lot of people's first Dead Mouse song they hear is Strobe, but that was the one that, because of the rhythms and everything, and me being a drummer, and I was like, oh wow, I like the syncopation, I like the over the bar line kind of rhythms where it's you don't know where the downbeat is, but it's just really pretty and musical, and then it lines up after a certain amount of bars and stuff, and it was that in like 2009 where I had that like flame rekindled to pick up music software and learn production and recording, and like just went like super hard into relearning and like picking up all that stuff again. So it wasn't I don't want to say it wasn't difficult, because it was, because I made such terrible music starting out. Um and like really bad, like really bad, like stuff you'd hear kind of like in the mainstream today, but worse. So um but yeah, then that just led to everything else, where I was doing some video. I tried to do 3D but didn't get really back into it fully until yeah, like end of 2019, 2020. So um yeah, wow, that's like a very long-winded, but kind of like that's the whole lore of and I'm sure there's more in there that as things come up, or certain songs play or movies come out that are like, oh, I remember this thing in 1992, or back in my day. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of the whole thing. So
So I have a question based on some of that. Did you ever do any of your music prior to VRChat for people or in a show of any sort, like play for people? Or was it only like self experimentation and creation?
oh yes, I definitely did. Yeah, in high school, this was before doing drum corps stuff, but there were solos that I wrote, and I do them like either for talent show, um or for some of our competitions. I had like features in like our show, where it's like a little featurette where I play, and yeah, there were other projects that friends would ask me to like, oh, you know how to like do music, or you know how to like do this thing or do video editing and stuff. So in that sense too, like I that would be like kind of like my little stamp on a friend's project of like helping their thing come to life. Yeah, it was kind of like, it seemed more where I was doing those things more for myself, but it was like tail end of high school into like early years of college, where it was like I like knew how to do these things, and it wasn't really, it became less of a focus on like my thing. So like even if I did a thing, it was more inspired by like the idea of like a friend, and then always saying, where it's like, no, this goes out to so and so that like planted that idea, and like, so I'd always like a credit to like other friends, or other people. So yeah, that answer the question?
Oh
I think
yeah, it most
I think it
definitely
did,
did.
kind of. Yeah.
It did.
Okay, cool.
So since you hopped in VRChat and you said you showed some of your music for people, what were your thoughts once you started doing it here in VR versus what you've experienced outside of the headset?
Oh man, that's a good question. Yeah, uh hmm I would say that like it was hmm yeah, I'm like thinking of, like, I have the answer right there, but yeah, it was more so where um it was like a not a better gauge, but like a kind of like a kind of sorta like a it was it was dang, that's a difficult way to phrase what I'm thinking, and what like I'm trying to put into words. Here, so I'm just gonna say, like, all those years were being around people that I was familiarized, or their friends or family and stuff. And so those people will kind of like, no matter what, tell you, oh, this is good, this is great, like, try to like build you up, or like raise you up and stuff. I guess it was more of like a uh, again, going back to now when I create things, it's less for like a personal kind of like gain or like
Mm.
personal interest, and more of like, inspiring other people to um or just putting something out into the world and just seeing how people either react to or interpret the things themselves. So it was like kind of like a more, not liberating, but more it's definitely like, I don't want to say like putting something out and then your friends or family uh telling it's cool is not valuable, but I think it's like even more valuable putting something out and that it's spreading even further to many other people, and like, it impacting or having like a positive impact on their lives.
Mm.
So I guess that is like the thing that I enjoyed a lot about uh, putting it out here, because you get to like see the results of it like right
Mm.
away, rather than putting it out into the void that is, or the noise of the like oversaturation and
Mm.
AI run bot filled world that we live in today, um so yeah, I guess, and that's, I don't know if that answered it. I feel like it kind of did, but
Oh, it's okay.
it's like
It's a
a
good
it's a
answer.
yeah, it's like a difficult thing to quantify, where
Mm.
it's like you gain such a wider perspective of how your art, uh or not just art, but like anything that you put out into like this platform specifically, you get to see those like reactions, results, or um uh those responses like right away. So yeah, I
Yeah.
hope that answered it
Oh,
somewhat.
it most definitely
Yeah.
answered it, and I appreciate the answer.
Okay.
I also have another
Cool. Cool.
question
Cool.
as well, because you did mention you've worked on a few different teams for like big festivals and club venues as well. How does the world building process for both types of groups differ for like one big giant festival versus a club experience? Code doesn't know I'm in here yet. Let me show you something. We have an event for a non-recorded test of this world specifically. It's going to be 6 p.m. EST the 21st. See you there, maybe.
Hmm. Yeah. They don't differ much. They don't differ much. Definitely. So at least like for how Slyfest is run, it's a team of a lot of
Mm.
a lot of people. A lot of people are involved and volunteer their time and effort, and uh like no one's making a profit from any of that, and um the only thing that, like everything goes back to either paying for server costs for like running streams or archiving. Like I'm sure you know about archiving stuff. It like isn't free to just keep that stuff somewhere in the cloud, or if you have physical space, you still need a lot of storage for that. But yeah, in that sense, it differs where it's like um, uh, Slyfest is more like charity and like volunteer based. And then the other team I'm a part of, Sanctum, we're a small collective of artists, so the team is like a lot smaller. So we have a couple people that uh, I primarily now do the environment for that. But at one point it was just one person, Pamamath, um, and now Pam does shaders. We have Mixie who does she does the programming and backend, and uh, and then just recently, like Eric, he does like DMX lighting, um, and we had Silent that was doing visuals, and then of course Muzz, he's like the head honcho guy, but like the director of the project, um, but yeah, both of those they don't differ much in terms of like how everything's created. It's more so like the management and how uh, like the goals and like the direction of each projects are going, you know. So yeah.
Okay. Another question I have it based on more towards the Slyfest world building thing is world building process because I went to one of them and I was quite curious about how do you do optimization for something that houses so many people with so many different venues and things going on at the same time? How do you like segregate those properly and optimize to not like crash everybody?
Mm, yeah. Uh, well, yeah, very early on, like all the way through the process, we do focus on like materials and texture sizes and draw calls and like script optimizations too, because you can have some scripts that will just tank performance because either they're doing a bunch of calculations in real time or they're just not really optimal for how, especially with how VRChat's networking is and whatnot. Um, but yeah, there's just like a big focus on the most important one is the visual stuff that everyone sees, like the textures, the geometry, and making sure that those are all as low poly but still look high detailed enough so it doesn't look like you're in like a you know Legend of Zelda game or something. Nothing wrong with Legend of Zelda, but that's the style that it's in. But we're going for semi, surrealistic and like somewhat realistic. But uh, yeah, the that's what I was gonna say is that um this I feel is where a lot of like my previous experience from starting on Quest 1 came in handy with that too because making stuff for Quest 1 back in the day was you had to really I mean you still have to optimize heavily for Quest. And that's one thing thankfully the last couple years that I've been a part of Slyfest that we really focused on and me being the person to get the Quest version ready so that it's like accessible to as many people as possible. So yeah, um, yeah,
Okay.
those are just a few of those things. So
Well,
yeah.
thank you very much. And Mask, what got you?
Hmm.
What have been some of your favorite projects you've worked with between everything you've been in? How did you get involved with those projects?
Mm. Yeah. The favorite. There are some other. There's some other. Oh, okay. That's coming back to me now. Yeah. One of the most random ones was gosh, was it 2022? I think it's somewhere around 2022 to 2023. Um, I was I I don't frequent as much as I used to in VRC traders. That's kind of like one way that I also was um, picking up a few commissions. I did like a couple avatar things here and there. Um, I had never, and I don't know why I never applied to do world creation. I may or may not. From there was one commission I took on, and um, it was run by it was Dork Toast. Dork Toast was the one that is the CEO head of a small independent studio, Gib Games,
Mm.
and uh, that commission I was brought on for was for gosh, I think that's public knowledge now because that's on their website, but it was for Hyundai Motors. It was like recreating their campus. They were doing this like smart city project with the cars and all
Oh.
that, and they showed it to everyone over there on the campus, and it was like meant for training during lockdown and all of that. But from that, after finishing that project, I was then asked if I wanted to come on for a position as level designer. And so, yeah, a little bit over, I think just a tiny bit over a year I was there. And then the company, unfortunately, like a lot of other small indie companies, like finances weren't doing too hot, so they had to like, shave off a bit. So I was like, oh, okay, so, but I had a nice experience, and definitely a few moments in there. There was like there was some crunch involved. One of those, now getting to the main reason of bringing up Gib, because this would have never happened, but one of our other clients at one point was creating Thrill Seeker's first music venue. And
Oh.
so through that, it was at first it was through Gib Games, and then there was like a deadline of when the project should have been ended, and uh, I was even told too that like I couldn't keep working on it, and so yeah, it was kind of happened all not conveniently or like very serendipitously where and I'm saying this in the most positive light that like being let go from that and them not being able to like financially keep me as a level designer, but then at that time I was able to like put more time in and help Thrill with like refining that and getting it to a state where they like could hold more events. And then from that, that led to, I want to say it was sometime in 2023 is when stuff was starting to open up a little more, and it was either 2022 or 2023. And TwitchCon was happening, and then I was asked if I wanted to play a live event that they were playing, and it was in collaboration with Tube as well. So not only I got to meet Hadian, and then got to meet Thrill, and then a few other like many handfuls of other VR people, and then so Friday was that event, and then Saturday night that same time was also ShelterCon 3, I
Mm.
believe it was, and so I attended that too, and then we all got to meet one another. A handful of them got to meet, again, but a lot of people got to meet for the first time, and um, yeah, that was like a really, really significant event of like getting to hang out with people that I'd been working with but had never met, and uh, but yeah, that was like I think one of my more favorite events,
Okay.
um, and the teams that I got to be a part of, and then um, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So.
So how
Mhm.
have those projects differed from the other stuff you were working on at the time, and why have those stuck with you particularly?
Oh, hmm, um, again, I wouldn't say they like really differ much. It's just the people really.
Mm.
That's like the only thing that's that's really different. And so like with that comes like different ideas and different. solutions to um, certain things that people are looking for. So yeah, I mean that answer the question.
Yeah,
I think it did kind of. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
You answered the
Cool.
question well. So, what was it like for you as well working on those projects in the back of house and then meeting them in real life afterwards? From like going from one side of the headset to the other, and then meeting the people you're working with.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that was I think that was like the second event that I had met people in VR, like
Mm.
a bit more than I had met the first time. And first time was in, oh gosh, I want to, I can't remember if it was. It's all kind of like blurred together, but I want to say it's the end-ish of 2021 or the end of 20. I don't think it was the end of 2022. I think it was end of 2021. Within the last few months was uh the infamous and like joke meme unofficial but official ShelterCon 1 where we all met in Seattle.
Mm.
Like a big group of VRChat people. So that was like a really cool thing that um where we weren't necessarily like people that were all working on stuff together. It was just a bunch of friends, you know.
Mm.
Um but uh but yeah, every hmm yeah, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but like every time meeting someone in VR that you've not actually met, I mean, quote unquote for real, is kind of like that same experience of like trying to detach your memory of or just, you know, seeing the avatar while you're hearing their voice in person, and like, you know, that's kind of like the icebreaker that I think is a really special thing because I don't think there's anything. There's a lot of other things that people can kind of like relate to, and then that's why comedians are funny because they make a joke that is like relatable. And so I think with like VR in particular, that's like an experience that a lot of people wouldn't understand. Going back to like VRChat, people see you in it for thousands of hours, you know, and they're like, "Why is this the game that you're playing for like these, you know, X amount of hours?" It's kind of like you have to try it to find out, and then and only then you'll experience that kind of like very unique experience of meeting a person for the first time.
Mm.
Uh, you know, quote unquote asterisk. You've met them before, but you're like fully meeting them. And so yeah, it's like that's one thing that dances around in my head that it's just kind of like, yeah, this is a very cool and unique experience that like not a lot of people get to yeah, experience, you know. So, yeah.
Okay. So, with some of the
Yeah.
worlds and stuff you've been working on, what do you get out of making worlds for people, and what have been some of the responses from those you've talked with who've seen it?
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Um. Yeah. Again, going back to uh, like it being more about like the like visual or the art side. Like it's kind of like people will I'm kind of at a place now with the things that I've created where um it's more like the process is the thing that I remember the most of like working on them,
Mm.
and not so much well, of course focusing on what the like objective or the end goal of like a world is supposed to kind of like achieve in the end. So I don't really like I appreciate the 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 like kind words and feedback and all that stuff, but it's like at the same time when I do hear about, or people like enjoy those experiences and stuff, it's like I almost forget um I forget that I've worked on those things because it's either I've like worked on it so much that I'm like done by the time that that I'm working on it, if that makes sense. It's like a whole different beast now where it's like either I get like super invested in a project to the point where it's like I'm ready to just get it out and then kind of like scrape it from my memory.
Mm.
Um, uh, or if it's something that's like as spontaneous as something like this, where it's like I opened this project up today just to, and it's just a couple cubes. It's like really not much, but it's like I totally forgot that I had put as much time and effort into it as I wanted, just because I wanted to make something quote unquote special or unique or something new to just have the talk in. So yeah, it's a very there's probably like some reason or like some explanation behind why I don't feel like as attached to either something I create or put out, and then also like yeah, I don't know. That's a difficult one to answer, and I could probably ramble on more
Oh,
to try and find the correct
mm,
answer, or like an answer that feels right. But
mm.
yeah, I don't know. It's just maybe indifferent is the word, but not
Okay.
indifferent in a bad way. Like indifferent where it's like you know, it's like I'm trying to exist the same from the same perspective as a person that didn't make it. So it's kind of
Mm,
like I like enjoying it too.
mm.
So,
It
yeah.
kind of, after hearing some of the things you said, it kind of sounds like you enjoy the process of creating more so than what comes after.
Right. Yep. Yes. Yeah, I guess I could have just said that. Dang. And then it would have been on the next question. No, yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Definitely it's the process, it's the journey, it's um yeah, and of course, like I'm not discrediting that, let's say like working months and months and months, thousands of hours on these things, the event comes and then it's like, this event's not even fun. It's still fun, but it's a different kind of, it's like a again, like I said, stepping outside of and like just becoming an audience member.
Mm.
Um, so or like the appreciator of the art rather than the artiste, so
Mm.
yeah.
Okay. So when you're working on a lot of the stuff, how do you stay organized with all the projects you've been in? From the sounds of it, you've been in quite a bit. How do you stay organized with all the assets and projects and notes?
Oh man. Whew. uh I don't. No, I'm kidding. There would be no way. There would be no way to. Uh, um. Funny enough, this is. I'm gonna actually. It's not a dirty little secret. It's just like a dumb thing that I've done. Uh, since the beginning of like working on worlds or different projects is
Mm.
I will maybe it's like in a way it's like visualization or affirmation or something, but and I don't even know why I started doing it, and it wasn't like it was almost like a subconscious thing that my brain just was like, hey, let's just make a collaboration folder, and then even if you're not collaborating with a person, but it's still related to either it being a meme or just like helping someone work on something, still put that in like a collaboration folder, and then sub that folder, put that, with the person that you're making either the meme or the little, or you make a help folder. So if that person that you helped asks like, oh hey, you remember that thing you helped me with? Like, do you still have? Boom, you jump to that folder, even though you're not officially collaborating with them. So a handful of those have actually like just organically from volunteering time and sharing knowledge and stuff that like that those have turned into full-fledged collaborations. But that's one of the ways. And then of course, like I have collaborations, commissions, for those like larger areas, and then yeah, so I do definitely, like I have textures folder, and then like either from what websites the textures are from or where they've been purchased from, and putting those into different categories and whatnot. And same with like 3D models and music and all that. So yeah, there's definitely like a method to the madness of all that. So I know where to find it when I go back to look for that stuff. So do you do something similar, or do you just have like how do you do it for the like all the video and stuff?
So,
Because I'm curious, because
oh,
like yeah.
I try and name first. I try and name every file with a group or person's name, and then from there, everything is separated by type and then year. So I'll use podcasts, for example. So I have a Metaverse Degen, or there's the Metaverse Degen folder, which has everything involving Metaverse Degen and for podcast. Then from there, we'll have it separated by like podcast, ad clips, community ads, and then podcast will go into that. That'll be 2023, 2024, 2025, and then you go into that, and those are the episodes from those year. Then each file is named based upon the person or group. So I just click on the folder, type in the folder I'm looking for SWA in 2025, and then there you'll be. Easy to find versus what I was prior to 2023, which is to like shove everything in a singular folder. That was a mistake.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, there. I mean, there definitely is some of that. Like, one for sure. Well, no, those are. Gosh, I can't say that because those ones are actually organized. But let's say like so for all my worlds, like my avatar and everything, I use a friend's shade. You know Mochi?
I
Do you know Mochi?
I don't know Mochi's a person, but I'm familiar with them.
Yeah. So they make their beautiful standard shader is being used in here for the worlds. Also for my avatar is the Uber shader. But the why I brought that up is Mochi's Mochi's folder for the shader, and I don't know why this is a thing. It's like digital hoarding, but there's like every version of Mochi's shader, like all the way down to like 2021, just like a folder, like a repository of all the different versions. And the same goes for other prefabs that need to be updated. I don't know why I keep them, but funny enough, Mochi actually told me one time, he's like, oh, I do the same thing if I need to go back and there was like a feature that broke or something or whatever, and he's like, so yeah, keep doing that, because I might accidentally one time delete them and need an older version, and I'm like, oh wow, well, I guess that came in handy. You know, just like the the bikes in the garage, or like the old TVs and yeah.
I do a similar
But
thing with my
yeah,
variants
that's
as
beside the
well.
point.
If I have different variants of podcasts or ad clips, for example, I'll name them like person dot one dot two dot three dot whatever, because you never know at some point, as you said, when they'll come useful later. You may not like what you did and change in 4, so you may go back to 3 just to go back and refix things. You never know.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you use Resolve for editing?
No, I use Filmora Wondershare, believe it or not.
Oh, Filmora I've heard of. Yeah. Does one I just sorry, this is like going off,
Oh,
but
it's okay.
this is me, like I said, like the flipping the script, kind of like getting into your world too, because it's like the thing is all the stuff I mentioned earlier, it's like video is also one of those things I've done for many years too. So it's like nerding out on other stuff other than worlds and music is
Yeah.
like awesome.
Oh, ask away.
Um, and I guess that was a difficult thing too, like going through all the episodes because it was of Metaverse Degen. And I was like, oh, another DJ, another DJ. I'm like, can we get other feel? There was one girl that was she was a improv. She did like acting and stuff, and I really enjoyed that one. But yeah, no, back to video. Not to get too far off. What? But uh, I for Black Friday paid finally after all these years for a license for Resolve Studio, and like all the features it unlocks, like one of the big ones I think that you would, unless Filmora has this, you can generate a transcription from the video. So you could have like a 3 hour long video. You just right click it and you say transcribe, and it gives you the whole thing in text. And if you have two people like an interview, it'll actually detect the different voices too, and then say
Oh.
speaker one, speaker two, and then you can take that and put those out with like a transcript, and like maybe put it out with like your Patreon, because I know you're doing that too.
Oh.
To plug Metaverse Degen Patreon, yo.
Well, I actually didn't know that that was a thing with Resolve because I've never seen Wondershare do a transcribing thing. I know one things it can do is it can
Mhm.
automatically translate and then do captions for. And then something else it does is pretty interesting is it'll if
Whoa.
someone's speaking Japanese, it'll take the audio data and then convert it to an English voice in their same voice as well, which is kind of interesting. I don't
What?
like it though because it doesn't sound
Yeah.
natural. But I think it's cool because like for the
Oh.
since we're doing like 1 to 3 hours, if you were like speaking a different language,
Mhm.
it would take all that audio data because you speak enough words there to do it, and they can take your voice and then do a English version of your voice. So you'd be speaking English in your own voice, which is cool. But I didn't know you could. There's no transcriptions that I'm aware of,
Yeah.
or I haven't found it yet.
Yeah. 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 Unfortunately, the like I said, like it is paid. So, but the thing is it's nice. It's perpetual license. You don't have to. Ooh, no subscription or anything. You pay for it one time, and you know, it's got other things like camera tracking. So if you're trying to like stabilize shots, it's got
Mm.
like the automatic roto, so it'll like select the person. So you could be like walking in a video, and if you wanted to remove the background from the shot, you just say, "Oh, select these things," and then cut that out of the shot or whatever. So, yeah. Sorry to
Oh,
get off on the video
oh,
thing, but
no, it's okay.
that's within my it's one of the cups of tea around here. So
Oh, so
yeah.
how many hats do you wear, may I ask?
uh, I try not to wear many. There are, and it's more recently that I've had to force myself to not, like, if I'm brought in on a project. Whoa, yeah, I stretches. Sorry. Um, but yeah, I try to just stay in one area, unless it's down to the wire and there is help that's needed. I'll offer, like, oh, video thing, or if you need like a graphic, or or like a animation, or something that's outside the scope of what I first signed up for, or what I was brought on for. Um, so yeah, one to however many. Especially that, I mean, that came in handy when I was doing stuff myself back in the day, but then yeah, over time it just kind of that's actually one of the things. Funny enough, I'm not sure how much you had like gone back and like really how much you had gone back and like looked through, but like definitely there's been like a decline of how much stuff I was putting out, and how much I've
Mm.
actually been playing music too, because it's I wouldn't say I went through like the more recent kind of joked about like music like VRChat music arc of like, oh, get in, wow, this is awesome. Oh, I'm gonna learn how to DJ because I already knew how to DJ, but that's besides the point. But
Mm.
get into VRChat, DJ, play too much, get burnout, and then just kind of like either die out or don't get on as much. So that kind of happened.
Mm.
But yeah, thankfully it's just still a couple things I'm a part of that I'm fine with like being more background and
Mm.
and like being an observer. Um, yeah,
Mm.
uh,
I've,
that answer the. I
yeah, you did.
think that did right.
I've noticed with a lot of
Okay.
people in VRChat the overconsumption of the things they enjoy to burn out is a common trait I've noticed along with people, especially a lot of people I've talked to, because I think people find it. Please tell me if I'm wrong, audience. But I feel like a lot of people find it so cool and interesting that they want to consume, and then they feel like they have to help or do other stuff, and they do it to a point of burnout and excess, and then they usually either die out or keep it going. I hear and see that a lot in
Mm,
the platform, at least from my own perspective.
yeah, yeah. That yeah. I've seen it a lot too. And have experienced it firsthand. Um, but yeah, one thing I was actually talking to a couple friends about it earlier, and one of the things that uh we were talking about is, well, they were saying something like, "Oh, I want to learn this. I want to learn that. I want to learn this. I want to learn that. I want to learn," and it's like I had to kind of say, "Hey, whoa, 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 whoa!" Like, I don't know if you're saying all that or you want to try and do that because that's like all stuff I do, but that this is stuff I've been doing for like a long, 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 long time. Like even at a time where I wasn't taking it seriously into then kind of thinking about it and taking it more seriously. So it's like I've already like been in it for years and years, like 25 plus, like better part of me being alive, you know. Um, but yeah, it was that instance, and then actually a couple years ago when I was like a part of like that Star Wars community, there were a few people too where they were like they were trying to do all this stuff and like getting overwhelmed and stressed out and burnt out, and it's just like I really hope just because I'm like contributing and wearing all these hats and doing all these things that you're feeling you don't have to like prove to me or like prove to other people that you can do all of these things. Like it's okay to just focus on one thing because um that's honestly how it happened for me at first, you know? Like it's work on one thing and then maybe a couple related other things will come that you learn a little bit of, but you're still focused in this one area.
Mm.
And so then you might pivot to like a different area of expertise and then work on that. Still have those things you learned previously. And then now you have two things that you've like learned pretty well. But yeah, it's that's the part that is really nice about being a part of a team or teams, is that everyone can focus on what they're best at, and then again, if uh, if another area needs to, like, let's say someone gets sick or someone is on a trip visiting someone's visiting family, you can pick up the slack or
Mm.
at least still get the job done or um, the piece of art or the thing, whatever it may be, out. So yeah, and then you feel less stressed out because you're you're a team player at that point. You're a part of a team.
Mm.
Um, but don't let anybody tell you though that there's no I in team, because there is me if you use two of the letters. Um, but
Well, there is also
but
an I in the a-hole if you do it in a blocky bubble
oh
letter.
oh that's funny. That's funny.
Sorry,
Yeah, but
bad joke.
but no, yeah, yeah, no, 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 it's good. It's good. That's good. But but yeah, so
Okay, team.
team.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from what I hear, from a lot of it, you started off doing a lot of stuff yourself, first working your team. What was it like going from the transfer from doing everything to then being with a team and not having to do everything?
Oh man, it was awesome because it was like I still got to work on cool things, but I didn't have the stress of having to worry about the scripting side of things or the the like promotion side of things or the video editing side of things, or could just focus in one area. um yeah so yeah, that was a very much welcomed feeling
Mm.
rather than just like running around like uh, a chicken with its not only head chopped off but all of its hats, doing like each area of work, so yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Did you find it to be an easy adjustment period working with a team when you first started? Or was it a bit difficult to get used to?
uh not not really, because uh, I had worked on teams before, like
Mm.
with music, like marching band, for example. You have to like listen back or listen to whoa. Um, you gotta do the limbo too. No, yeah, you have to work together not only with like your sec. What is going on? Hey, stop. Is that showing on your end too? Me
Yeah.
doing the hip thrust,
Yeah.
flying away.
I
Okay,
see you,
all right.
your
I
hip
think I'm
trying to
good.
go to the moon.
Yeah, I know. Okay, here I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try it. Okay. Um, but yeah, so not only being a part of, let's say, the drum line, which is just one small part of it, but then that extends further out to, let's say, like the lower brass or the higher brass, or the up front you have the woo, melodic percussion, who doesn't move, but like they have to listen back to everyone. So it's like there's different parts of what is going on. What is
Oh,
going on here? Here, let me. Oh, maybe I have actually. Oh, my office chair has swiveled quite a bit. What in the world? Woo. Sorry. What is going on here? Here, let me. Oh, did not even realize I swiveled that much. Woo. Um, but swivel swa. But yeah. So it's all part of like one larger body. So, it kind of honestly, I remember talking about that. Uh, was like, oh man, this feels like being back in those groups, like thinking on our feet, kind of adjusting to like the climate of like what are people looking for, or like how can we create like a cool experience for people, people that um are new to VR, or people that have been in VR and haven't like experience things like different events that are actually happening during a music event, so
mm.
be that with like theatrics or puzzles you have to solve. Uh, yeah, so yeah,
Oh,
it's yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
okay. So, since we've talked a little bit a while ago, what kind of video projects have you worked on, and what was it like trying to get into it when you first started getting into like the video editing and the filmography?
Oh, video. Oh man. One, one I would say one of my more not well known, but one of my like in French you'd say pièce de résistance, is in I want to say it was like it was either my junior, I think it was my junior year. Yeah, because I only did 3 years of French. And those of you that don't know, my name Swa comes actually from my real name, which is François in French. It's like the French Frank or John or Peter or something.
Mm.
Um, but yes, in French class, I only took 3 years. And it was that year that for our final we had to do a video using a bunch of vocabulary having to do with cars. So how you would say, braking or using the steering wheel or the horn, or so it had to be like all related to cars. And we had to make a video though. So what I did is I I I wasn't at the time, I was not a very good director slash writer, but I had kind of like the story in my head of the film I wanted to make. Um, and I had my mother was in it. M my best friend from like Drumline was in it. He played well, before I tell you what character he played. So what it was is around that time, the movie Napoleon Dynamite had come out maybe like a year or two before.
Yep.
And so I was like a big Napoleon Dynamite fan. And if any of you kids, I'm saying kids because there's a lot of youngins, the, go watch that movie. It's like such a good, like innocent, like just cute movie. But so what I did is um, I I made this video, Napoleon Dynamite. I played Napoleon Dynamite. I kind of like poofed my hair up a little bit. I had glasses. I made the face, um, and so it was Napoleon Dynamite. He's taking his driving test, and he crashes the car. He fails the test, and then he goes back, takes the test, and he passes or whatever. Or we're led to believe he passes because he drives off into the sun with Gary Newman cars playing. But yeah, it was in that project that it was probably on a very small scale where I had to like in the kind of like flight or fight response come up with a story, get an A on my final, and at that time it was Windows XP using Windows Movie Maker. So it was like Windows Movie Maker that came with the computer. It was awful, but it got the job done. And this was during a time too where I don't, like again, this is gonna be like old man on top of his monolith or on top of his hill, telling kids about in my day. But you had to actually set up the camcorder, hit record in the software, and then play the tape and let it record on the timeline in Windows Movie Maker. Or even Premiere had that back in the day where you had to like hit play, let the tape play, and record it so that it was in the computer. Yeah, that was a bit back then. That was an experience. So, yeah, we take so much for granted with like video editing. It's so easy now. You just have it on your phone, or like with OBS, you have it recorded and then you can have it remux, convert it from MKV to MP4 right away. So if you have a crash, you can recover it, all this. But yeah, so from that, learned a lot of timing and pacing and things because you're trying to tell a story and you don't want it to have like any awkward pause or anything like that. But yeah, that was like that, and then the next year doing that band video, and that one also you kind of had to. I used like music that, yeah, at the same time using music and doing kind of like a video version of. If you want to say that was like an early bit of DJing too, then with the visual and musical part with the video. So yeah, it's those that have really stuck in my head. And actually, this Napoleon Dynamite video, which again is also in my terrible French, but my grandmother, who's actually from France, came here in the late 60s. She's in it, and she's like the driving instructor. She did an amazing job for like never acting. But yeah, it's on YouTube. It's on my I mean, if you want, I don't know if you want to share it, but it's not on my SwaMusic YouTube. It's actually on like my personal YouTube, but I don't care people seeing that, but
It will be in the description. You should click
yeah. Oh. Yeah, no, it's a cute thing, man. Like it's I'm so glad that I was able to I don't even remember where. I think it was like on some random flash drive and I like came across and I was like, "Oh my gosh, no way. I'm re-uploading this or uploading this," because at that time we didn't have like YouTube wasn't a thing, or it was just starting in like 2000 whatever, like 4 or 4 or 5. I can't remember. It was so long ago. 20 years. Oh my gosh. 20 years ago. oh, oh my gosh, dude. That is crazy to think about sometimes. Like how much time has flown by. How? Oh, I'm 37. So how? Do
I'll
you
tell you,
mind me asking how old you
I'm
are?
33.
Oh, okay. So you're okay. You're not too far away. So you may have seen some of this stuff, you know. So
Yeah, I remember
um,
movie. Remember Movie Maker. I remember the start of YouTube. I remember Beyblade's Pokemon season one of both Power Rangers and Pokemon, where all the kids in the road would all disappear the moment the show would turn on.
okay, but previous to Beyblades though, do you remember the other thing that like the 90s kids like lost their heads on?
Uh,
Especially with like the theme song of the commercial.
Mighty Beans.
No. I don't I'm not sure the history of it if it was before Beyblades, but do you remember Crossfire?
I don't remember Crossfire.
Oh man, dude. Okay, so you'll get caught up in the crossfire was like the commercial, right?
Yeah.
And so the commercial's like these kids on like the corner of the thing, and it was like a square board, and what you had is you had these little triggers, and you'd put it was either like little balls with these tracks on them that would like spin and like hit each other, and I can't
Yep.
remember how you played or scored points, but you would just like pull the triggers and pull the things, and they'd shut, and you'd have to like fight the other guy's little like piece on the board. But yeah, I'll send it to you after and see
Oh,
if you see what I'm saying, where it's like very similar to Beyblades. Because Beyblades were the ones that you like spun around and you had to like whichever
yeah.
one's the last one standing or something, right? Kind of
Yeah.
like Pogs. Do you remember Pogs? No,
I
not play of game. Not play of game.
No, I remember seeing those, but I never used them, to be honest, Pogs. But
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
I was in that group of 90s kids who went towards Mighty Beans instead of Pogs.
Yeah, funny enough, I'm just remembering now. See, this is one of the many things of being old and seeing too many things. But I actually have this Pokemon. It's like a three pog, like
Mhm.
metal pog Pokemon. I think like one's like Charmeleon, and then the two other they're not the Pokemon that you choose from in the games, but they're just like random Pokemon. But yeah, they're like medi metal heavy Pogs.
Oh,
Yeah,
one of the,
yeah. So
oh, that sounds awesome.
yeah.
Speaking of Pokemon, one of the few things I still have from my childhood is the Pokemon book, the red Pokedex Pokemon book, with some of the Pokemon cards I had at the time. And I like the shiny ones and what I thought were good, but they're not. But it's goes down memory lane. It's just a whole bunch of Pokemon cards from back in the day. Although now that I remember, I regret trading away all of those things because the ones I gave away were worth money.
Yeah, yeah. I sadly my little brother actually told me that it was sadly enough someone from like his second family that got into his stuff, and there were things that he had borrowed from me that they sold. And so I was a little bummed out, but it's just
Mm.
kind of like, it's I still have my brother. That's cool. But yeah, I had like a Machamp, I had like a Scyther, I had the Mew from the movie, like in the plastic still, like and I had it in this bicycle card box or whatever. That's
Mm.
where I had all my holographics. Um, but I do still have like kind of like they're like the third party offshoot Pokemon cards, and I have like a Pokédex. It's like actual Pokédex size, but it's a calculator, and then you can
Ah,
type in the number of the Pokemon, and like digitally on the screen with like the monochromatic pixels, it'll like draw the Pokemon
I remember that.
with the pixels. It's kind of cool. Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah. So yeah.
Oh, something else I remember from those ages that makes me cringe when I see it is the Moon Shoes commercial that you'd see on Nickelodeon and stuff.
Um. Yeah. 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 No, I also still have a few of the Burger King golden cards, like those little
Yeah.
Pokeballs with the golden cards in them. Yeah. I've Mewtwo, Poliwhirl, and Charizard. For sure, Poliwhirl and Mewtwo though. Yeah,
Oh, you saying
but
the
yeah,
Burger King cards reminded me of a story that someone I know told me, where one of their friends said
yeah.
these gold Pokemon cards are going to be worth money one day. So he spent a lot of money collecting them all, and he still has them to
Oh
the
no.
stage in a box filled with the things. They're worth nothing now, but he just has a giant collection of them. I think they'd be worth money.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's definitely like um a lot towards the end of 2024. Kind of like a shift in perspective of things.
Mm,
Especially with like working in VR and a lot of stuff that is like non-tangible or physical.
mm,
Like I have grown less and less attached to like physical things. Like the memories are cool to have and like
mm.
reminiscing about those, but it's just they take up space. They're just, it's if you need to move, that you're gonna have to take it with you or put it in storage. Like we're like number one country in the world too that just like that has a plethora of like over yeah, just it's an overabundance of storage and space and things that we don't need and stuff. But that's a whole other subject. I don't want to get too far out there with that stuff, but yeah, it's nice. It's nice like reminiscing about those things. So yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, childhood.
Well, speaking of reminiscing, a question I'd like to ask you, because I asked everyone else, I'm kind of curious. After all this time looking back since you've got the headset, have you expected to be on the same path that you're on now when you first got in?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, even though first coming into VRChat, my first world was very, it was like very, very pointed, and I had like a sense of direction of like what I wanted to do, and I like still want to do those things. But now with the knowledge I've gained, and create more engaging and more visually pleasing experiences. Either that be music based or puzzle or story based. Um, uh, I yeah, I'm kind of like at a different place where I'm just kind of wherever the art or the projects or the people take me. Like
Mm,
granted, it's with people that also align with those like core principles
mm.
and so is that kind of like what you're like,
Oh, well,
because it made me sad when you brought up that when VR chat finally shuts down and
oh,
like all
I
this, and it's
don't
like
no,
what will
I don't
happen,
mean that in
you
like
know
a terrible way, because I only said that because
yeah.
very recently I went back to some of the old games I used to like back on Xbox One when like, look, you could play live with your friends, and those servers are gone, and it kind of like
Yeah, they are.
one of the things that it kind of I didn't start Metaverse Degen for the perspective I want to archive for this. It's something I've been told it's there for later, but it kind of makes sense. But when you look back at those games, you can't really play with those same people you played at that time. You can't turn on Halo 2 where you can play with your friends at Halo, drive a warthog through a doorway. Those experiences are gone. So when you look back, you have the videos if you recorded any at the time. But at least with like archiving things
mm,
here, eventually VRChat, hopefully not for 100 plus years or more, but one day VRChat may be of the same vein, maybe long after we're dead. But even if that's the case, there's going to be kids who grew up here in VRChat doing the things, so we give something for people to look back to whenever that is. I'm not saying VRChat's going away, but there will be that time.
right, right, yeah, it's just like part of the process, part of the like cycle or circle of life or whatever.
Mm.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Hmm.
Although I don't think VRChat's
Hmm.
going there anytime soon. I don't know if you know this, but statistically, VRChat's a video game anomaly because most video games over time will start off at its peak and then slowly peter out at a slow percentage. VRChat's just like 45-degree angle upwards to the moon nonstop, just full bore straight up.
Yeah, to the moon, to the moon. Yes. Yeah, let's hope it keeps going that way. Yeah, it's I that's one thing that I hope at least like people start to recognize is that it's less of. It just so happens it's on a platform for games, but it's much more than a game, really. Like limiting it to saying it's a game is kind of like it's very demeaning to the like time, effort, emotion, blood, sweat, virtual tears, because you don't want to fog up lenses, but that goes into 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 creating and refining and making it better. And I think as frustrated as at least from like the perspective of a world creator and being limited of things that you can do in other games but you can't do here because of security and people that are jerks and that just want to make everyone else's, or that's what they at least try to do, but they're very very quickly kind of pushed out. But yeah, like maybe eventually one day, but yeah, so
Well,
yeah.
VRChat, like most platforms or things, you're gonna have those people who are very cynical in how they view things, and they're gonna go ruin your fun. But that's never stopped fun from happening in other places. Like, let's use VRChat for an example. We've remember those times where people would enter lobbies and blip everybody out because haha funny. But has that stopped raves from happening? No, not at all. Did it stop role players or the furry community from doing things? No. People still march on, like Halo
Right.
or Call of Duty back in the day. Same things. It ain't going anywhere.
Yeah. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I like that. Yeah, I like that. I like that perspective. That's a good one.
Well, to be fair, also in a different way as well, the way I see it is, with people like that helps things improve. At least the way I see it is you're not going to get better at security or to make things better without people who push the limits. Maybe I'm wrong. There are people who are very like, I want to get better for getting better's sake, but sometimes things don't push forward unless someone goes, what does this button do?
Right. Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of that. What's this button do? Oh, okay, you're banned now because oh wait, you've actually helped us. Oh, you're hired. Like or I mean, I don't know if that's how it has gone down for how some of the people are employed for VR chat or whatever, um but yeah, no, thank you to those people that are making it a safer place. And looking out for everyone's self-interest, really, of like just wanting to be safe, I think is like a fundamental thing. And then outside that, just like the love, the care for everyone. So yeah.
Have you been able, when you know everything you know now from learning to build worlds and music and videos, do you appreciate video games or your hobbies as much as you did prior to knowing all of this? The same?
Oh man, it ruins it. It's ruined it. It's ruined it for games because I can't play games or like I can't just enjoy. Uh, I mean, at least for in VR chat because it's like I know what it takes to do the stuff in here, and like kind of like thinking of like, oh, I wonder what thought process or I wonder what solution these people found for this one issue or like I wonder what technique this person used to make this object or this geometry or something. But yeah, as it goes for like just regular 2D games and all that, like it is kind of not only the knowing how the behind the scenes part works, but it's I'll always remember this when I first got that Quest 1 and first game I played because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. It was the demo they used at Best Buy, and after I stopped the demo, I'm like pacing the Best Buy, and I'm like, am I really gonna buy this Quest 1? I bought it, and then I went back to where I was living at the time and played that, and then had to charge it, and I pull my phone out, and I'm just scrolling, and I'm like, wow, 2D sucks. 2D is terrible. VR is like so much better because you're in uh um you're in a different world. You're in a different experience for just like a little whatever 5 to 2 or 3 hour time period, or for people that live in VR, 12 plus hours a day. Yeah, you're in a completely different world, which some senses it's good, others it's not. If you make it your life and everything, there's still stuff out in the real world. There are real people. There's real problems in the world that need solving. But yeah, it's definitely like turned everything on its head, in terms of like how I used to experience games, be it the very first Halo, where I was the kid that, all my friends are like, "Oh, bro, shoot, boom, warthog, blah, blah," and here I am, like staring at the texture on the grass, like, "Look, you guys, like the grass is so pretty," like, that's how you knew I was gonna be an environment artist, um, or be into to development and whatnot. But yeah, it's completely, in a positive way, it's ruined it. In the most positive light. Yeah. Yeah.
I like asking that question because some of my friends in the real world are like construction workers and people who build things, and watching them go through like projects and housing things, go, yeah, these guys fucked up the banisters. Look over here. Look, the post is off. I could see that, and they're barely even in the room yet. I find it interesting to like hear perspective people who do stuff like that here, like build worlds like you, because I've always find it interesting to how if you know a skill well enough and you try to enjoy something for what it is, it's like, oh no, I don't like it. The post is at a small degree off, and I hate it. I can't look at the room anymore. Bye. That kind of stuff. I enjoy those.
Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoy hearing those perspectives.
Yeah. At first it was like that a little bit in VRC, but it didn't take too long to not to kind of get over that and just appreciate, again, coming and pulling outside of the perspective of like being super in it to getting burnt out and then removing myself from not myself but the self from like the art and the medium and the work and all that, and actually being able to enjoy not only other people's work, but like myself, or our team's work. So yeah.
Okay. So what made you want to change from going like full bore into it to then taking a step back and having that degree of separation between the work and the enjoyment? Maybe using this AI would be fun.
Hello, user. You appear to be searching for the Metaverse
Oh, great. I think it's broken. You know the link. Just look at metaversedegen.card.co. There should be something over there for you to enjoy.
Lion and Raptor. Consume content. Join the cult.
Did it just say cult? Okay. Yeah, nope, we're cutting this before this gets weird. Just go to the link. It's right down there somewhere. All right. Bye. And a huge thanks to those who have subscribed to our Patreon, such as Niche, Feature Oracle, Aliquum, Forbidden Zero, and Frozen. Thank you all very much for being there. What caused that?
Oh, it was definitely the burnout, for sure. The burnout, and then of course, I mean, I'd be lying if I wasn't like honest with, there was like a big falling out of like a lot of our friend groups that were like really close, and yeah, it just kind of hurt, and trying to like rectify things and just like causing more harm, and just kind of like, okay, it's like it's probably time to take a step back and just like not kind of go back a little bit to doing my own thing, but also still being because believing in the other team projects that I've been a part of. Yeah, it was those, if it weren't for those things, I'd probably I mean, God forbid, off the platform, or just like sequestered in my own little hole back making music worlds all by myself, and then just kind of randomly going into Publix of my worlds and just seeing how people are experiencing them, you know. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So it was mainly that, and just kind of recognizing too that um, that's the other thing with VR is after you spend an extended period or an extended amount of time in here, you kind of appreciate the uh, the real world more. Like
Mm.
all the little granular bits, the little patterns that you recognize that, oh, like a Voronoi or like a noise texture that exists similarly to real life, that's
Mm.
we're trying to recreate real life but real life's not trying to recreate virtual, so it's I don't know don't try and interpret that. I won't try and interpret that those words just came out. But yeah, it's like you definitely appreciate the things in life. I mean, be that the 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 grass you may see or touch, or the trees, or even your family, or like my dog too. I appreciate
Mm.
my dog a lot more too.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah, it's crazy to think that something like VR is like a good kind of like a nice mental or like physical check. It's
Mm.
kind of like recalibrate you in a way,
Mm.
So yeah.
I think most people who come into VR and extension VR chat, especially from all the stories I've heard, no, when you come into here without like a goal in mind, you generally don't come back the same person. And usually it's for the better. Usually people come in with anxiety and social anxiety, come out being open and talkative people. If you come in with a certain, I guess, view of life, you usually come out a very different person if you spend enough time here and take it with a bit of an open mind anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I've seen that too, where like people more closed off have, like you said, they become more open and expressive people. But I've also seen people that come in very open and expressive, and because of
Mm.
either being hurt by, or like not only hurt, but kind of like betrayed or stepped on and stuff. Like they become like a completely opposite person, which is a bummer. And um, but uh, but yeah, it's yeah, I'm trying to figure out a way to kind of like mosey into the subject of like what I said earlier about like seeing the platform and like how much time and effort and like really love has gone into creating anything, and like fostering an environment for creators, or just people like quote unquote normies just enjoying everything, that uh it's like a positive space. Like of course you're gonna have those negative people, or again like we said, like trolls, or people trying to make it a bad time. But um going into the new year, I'm hoping that people will kind of like stand up more for positivity, or if they see something bad happening, they stand up for people, or speak up, or because like yeah, it's difficult doing it on your own, but if you how the saying goes, it takes a village,
Yeah.
that's very stands true for this place that we like hold very near and dear to our hearts, so
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, without laying anyone's cards out, there are some things to keep an eye on VRChat Twitter for. But also, I'd like to pass a little bit of a personal message to you as well. I'm going to start with a very specific metaphor. You know the when you buy a car, let's say something weird, a Pontiac, and you get the Pontiac, and all of a sudden Pontiacs show up everywhere. It's like, oh, there's one, and that's one.
Oh, that.
So
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
you see and what's around you stems a lot from what you look for and get yourself. Now, it's a funny thing that took VRChat for me to learn this as a personal experience. But when you look for something particular, especially in a platform like VRChat, generally what you surround yourself with and how you interact with things will stem on what you see as well. So don't know if that helps or not, but a little bit of a thing I'd like to pass.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like around this time when
Sorry for that, by the way.
Oh no. No, you're good. You're good. I had my mic muted. I didn't realize, and then I was like, oh wait, I see red. The yeah, around that time, like that stuff happening with friends, I was just kind of done with social media too. So I deleted it from all my devices and made it like super difficult to where I have to like really physically and forcibly make myself get on there, check Twitter, or I mean, like I don't even check Instagram, Facebook, like any of that. And now that everyone, I mean, not everyone, but a good majority of people that were posting positive things have like moved to Blue Sky, and I had created one a while back and never set it up and never really like I don't go on there either. But in a way it almost felt like not an abandonment, but it's just I don't know. It was like like going back to like fighting stuff with like love and positivity. It was kind of like thankfully like my feed is not full of any of that. Like I only see like game development stuff or Blender or dog or cat videos or you know, just like nature and things like that. So for the little that I do actually get on there, like I really don't see anything, and haven't really like I'm doing much better not having it on any of those devices, because you don't have that like urge or that kind of like reflex to check your phone every 5 seconds or something, you know. So yeah, but I'm trying to think how I was trying to like connect that with the whole like the Pontiac thing. But yeah, it's yeah, I don't know if you if you had any other stuff, but on that subject. But yeah, I mean, it's just I just do I'm gonna stand firm on my belief that like with like love and positivity, even if it's like people you hate, like it's like, okay, yeah, a person might be a jerk, but there's a reason why they're a jerk, and like if you don't want to engage with them, that's cool, just like mute or block them or whatever. But I mean, like if you really care about like people, or I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just love and positivity, man. Like it's
I think I understand what you're trying to say. Everyone has a story and a reason for their actions, and some of that deserves to be heard and wish to be healed.
Right. Yeah, and it's, you know, again, there's like extreme cases of like people that are just too far gone to try and help, and like hopefully, you know, at some point in their life they'll like they'll realize that it's like the whole, oh man, no matter where I go, there's like, you know, like people are, you know, like out to get me and all this, and it's like, well, if you've been like 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 different places and there's always a problem, have you maybe tried thinking it might be you, you know? So, but that's like the difficult stuff that some people need to be kind of like confronted with, and then they sit there and they realize that, oh man, you know, like maybe it is. you know, and then from there, that's where like the real growth can happen, and that's where they can really start seeing that it's like not, you know, it's not all about us, you know, it's about other people and lifting them up. And
Yeah.
again, this is the big part about being a part of a team, is that not only are you're encouraging other people you work with to grow, or you're sharing, and um and they're gaining knowledge from what you're sharing with them, but outside of that, like the people that it impacts, you know,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are like the true beneficiaries of that hard effort, that hard work, the love and respect that like everyone that, you know, that they all deserve, you know. So yeah,
Some,
getting really sappy now, man.
it's okay. Sometimes the most loving thing isn't always the kindest thing. Like if you have a family member who's drinking
Right.
alcohol, it is kind to tell them keep on drinking if you're comfortable. But the loving thing would be, hey man, it's killing you. I can see it. You're destroying your relationships. Your liver's dying. You should put it down. There's a stark difference between being kind and allowing people to do what they're doing, even if you're friends, and it's the loving thing if you generally care about people. Like, hey, you should take a slow down on the booze, bro. So is that the kind of thing you're trying to say?
I mean, that's one part. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that in VRChat. And I mean, like, even outside of VRChat, like, the problem is even greater. It's like it's a very normalized thing. But yeah, to what you said, like, it's not very normal when it starts affecting everyone and everything that you're doing, and hurting people, and like really, like, ultimately, like, at the core of everything, like, hurting themselves, you know, the most. And maybe that's what they want, but that's not, that's an awful thing, you know. That's yeah, um there is a way out of all that stuff, you know. And uh like, and it's really up to us to kind of show, and this might be where, in hopes of like the creation or the art or self-expression of, um a lot of it at times doesn't even seem like it's like coming from like the self, but maybe it's something in the universe that's like, hey, you should really make this thing because it'll impact these people, or you know, or it'll pull this person out of this thing that they're going through and see the beauty in that and want to either make it themselves, or you know, help them quit something like that, like an addiction or something. But yeah, because it can be difficult with telling them head on. But yeah.
Well, in terms
Yeah.
of that,
Hope this for the oh,
No,
I was gonna say, I hope for you viewers out there, it's not getting too dark. Like, it's yeah, it's like, man, like, it's like, at the end of the day, it's just, this is difficult stuff to talk about too, but it's like, it needs to be talked about, and like, people need the help, and like, that's the thing, is like, at the end of the day, like, this is why you try and love on the people you hate. Like, please try your darnest, because it's like, it's worth it, not only for that person, but like the community, because you never know, that person could turn around and completely 180 benefit the community and make it grow even more. And you know, like, not only one community, because I look at VRChat itself as like one large community, you know. So
indeed,
yeah.
indeed,
Yeah, yeah,
I very much agree
yeah.
with that. I've found, like, I'm going to use someone I've met a while ago to kind of prove another point as well. Sometimes the people who you view as not the best people, or in the exact same position you are, that caused them to go the different road. The difference between you and another person is you went down a more positive road versus them who didn't. So sometimes when you offer kindness and love to someone who's not the nicest person, sometimes may help them off a road that which they shouldn't be on.
Yeah, it's like the whole hurt people. Like
Yes.
it's very, very true, and it's so very difficult to try and, I mean, if you think you need to reason with them or help them or um you know, but yeah, doing the wrong thing, doing bad things, saying bad things, even though it might feel right in the moment to like say that thing or take that jab, like it's just not gonna make it better for either party, you know.
No. I don't
Yeah,
remember where
yeah.
I heard this, but there's a quote that I heard from somewhere, and I wish I could remember. Violence begets violence, hate begets hate. What you sow
Oh,
is what you grow, is a different way. So if you're running around,
yeah.
yeah, sorry.
Well, I mean, I mean, if I'm being real, that's, even if it was from like some self-help expert, that's like, I mean, I'm not trying to get all preacher, but that's like Bible stuff. Like
Oh,
they, it's all in movies, and yeah,
that's true
it's,
though.
yeah,
Like what you,
yeah, yeah,
how you
yeah.
act, how you speak, how you treat others. It's like, think of
Mm-hmm.
darkness like a disease. Like, for example, so we talked earlier, COVID. When you go around touching people and spreading it, it'll spread in the person which you touch it with. It doesn't matter however you want to
Right.
preach it. If you want to get rid of something, ooh, I'm crashing. Oh, I almost died there. Haha, VRChat crash. But
Oh yeah.
when
Oh,
you, I think I'm
I
back.
know.
I lost my
Ooh.
thought. Okay. When you go around and touch people with whatever it is
Yeah.
that's bothering you, let's say you don't like a certain thing, vanilla ice cream as something random and innocuous. If you go on hating on vanilla ice cream, then you're going to bring the exact same thoughts to those who do like it. So when you spread those things, regardless of whatever it is, you're not helping the situation, you're making it worse. So sometimes the exact opposite approach is also viable and also does the same thing as well. When you act kind and nice, it spreads kind and nices.
Yeah. Exactly. 1000%. Yeah, even though cookies and cream is the best, and that's the only ice cream you should eat, but we won't get into the politics of cookies and cream ice cream is better than vanilla. But they're saying you can't make cookies and cream without vanilla ice cream. So,
I'm more of a
boom.
I'm more of a mint chocolate chip or Reese's person.
Mint chocolate,
Yeah, I
mint
like.
chocolate chip is crazy. Like crazy people like mint chocolate chip, but it's good. It's crazy good. No,
Well, to be
I'm kidding.
fair, most people wouldn't devote themselves to something like this if they were totally sane. So I'm not that sane. So I'll take that L.
No. Mint chocolate chip is like my second to cookies and cream. It is. It is. So I'm crazy too.
It's okay. So, may I ask you a question with all the stuff you do with video editing, world building, music? What are some of the items in your toolkit as to things you go to for resources or use?
Yes.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. I took your joke. Sorry.
I can hear Raptor now going,
so
"Damn it!"
He's all, oh, come on, man. No. Listen. um. Yeah. Oh, so in my toolkit for video editing, you asked?
All of the above. Like when you create art, whether building worlds or video editing, what are some of the go-to tools and resources you like using when you're building or creating?
Got it. That is. Oof. I'm just gonna think of like the most current things because I've used many tools over the years. But current right now, first and foremost is Blender, because you can do you can do video promos, you can do 2D like motion graphics and stuff. A lot of people don't ever look at it from that perspective, but you can. You can also do it for use it for photo editing and color grading video. You can do video editing with it as well. And like audio sequencing and all that. So Blender can do so many different things, and depending on the project, like chroma keying, visual effects. But then, yeah, to that, So yeah, Blender, and then GIMP is more open source. I've like totally gone away and moved away from Adobe stuff because they've increased prices, super predatory with the cancellation fees, and Adobe, if you're listening, sorry, it's the truth. Sorry if this hurts your maybe change. I don't know. Um, but yeah, for photo editing is GIMP, and then I use an online open source one called Photopea,
Hmm.
which is a good one. It's like Photoshop clone. You can do all of the same stuff. Um, and then for music production, I use Ableton, and not only for music production, but doing sound design and like film scoring, where you can have the video up and then film score alongside with it. Let's see, what other programs? So you know what? I gotta look at my taskbar because I have everything there. So yeah, anyone making worlds or creating art, I'm gonna just go down my whole list. Yeah, so Microsoft To Do, that one's good for doing checklists for different projects, and it'll sync across all your devices. Marmoset Toolbag, which is the Substance Painter alternative. The baking is way better, and doing high poly to low poly bakes is like so much better. And it's not Adobe, and you can pay for a perpetual license. Uh, let's see, DaVinci Resolve for video editing. Um, let's see, Trello, that one's for doing like project management, and like kind of like checking off cards and stuff, for tasks for projects. PureRef, which is like a mood board app, where you can put up visual images of, let's say you're working on a project and you're going for a certain style. You can jot down notes under those photos. Obviously Unity, Plastic, but it's also been changed and rebranded to Unity version control, so you can collaborate with teams, and one person can be working on code, one person can be working on the world, one person can be working on sound, and then everyone can combine all their changes, and it also backs it up in the cloud. So if everyone's computers blow up, you could get a new computer and then reinstall it. Let's see, are there any other notable ones that would help people's workflows? Let's see. Yeah, that's about it. Everything else on my taskbar here is like either like streaming computer, like GOG for games that I never play because it's only VRChat and Unity and Blender that I'm in 25.8. Yeah, that's about it. Like everything else is just not work related stuff, but yeah. So yeah. So those are kind of like my heavy hitting tools that I've been using the last couple years that to help in the workflow. So yeah.
Now, were those things you found in research, or those like suggestions that someone's made you along the way?
Yeah, so like Photopea, the photo editing one, that was actually by a friend, Pigeon. He told me about it, and I've been using it ever since, probably like the last year or so. And yeah, along the way, like other products have popped up, and like solutions and stuff, or through watching YouTube videos or forums or on Twitter. Again, that's why Twitter is like, there's so many people that are still on there that are sharing knowledge in their art and stuff. Even amongst like all the like, if you haven't heard it, you're gonna hear it here first. But there's always gonna be haters and problems on every platform. So like a new problem or new platform is not gonna solve those problems of like those people being like, existing. So this goes back to, again, like either love, respect, or just not engaging with those people, muting and blocking. Because I'll still see the random thing on my feed on Twitter, and I just go, ellipses, mute, and then I never see them again. So, but yeah, a lot of those tools have come from Twitter. Like a lot of tools, like Marmoset, DaVinci Resolve, uh, um, yeah, and just again like sharing your art. And I know a lot of people were concerned about them training their AI with it, but you can turn that stuff off, so they can't do that. So you can opt out. So that's what I've done. But then again, I really don't share much art. It's more if I find like a cool tool or want to make like a short, quick little tutorial video or something I'm excited about that I need to get out and share. So yeah.
Okay. So another question is, what have been some of the best, what have been some of the mentors who have brought you along this journey as well? What's some of the advice they have given you?
Oof. Oh man. Gosh. Who have I had as a mentor? Dang. Oh my gosh. I mean, I could maybe think of like teachers from grade school or like junior high maybe. Um you know what? Actually, just this is because it's the only thing that's really stuck with me. But I think he was both 7th and 8th grade teacher. He did art. He did English and history. Mr. Riley. And in my 8th grade yearbook for like the send off, when we were graduating, he drew like a little, because he's an art teacher. He drew this little bug guy with a little pen, and then he put a little speech bubble, and it said, "Why be normal?" And he said, have a good, whatever, Francois. And so I kind of lived by that in terms of like why kind of like go with the flow and just, like push the bounds of like what you think you can do. Like if you want to do a thing, like push yourself to learn how to do it, or get involved in like a community or like on a team, or because doing all that is not the norm. The norm is kind of like work 9 to 5, go to a job, come home, veg out, watch Netflix, go to bed, wake up, do the same thing, and then maybe add some like complaining in there of like, oh, why is it, like I really want to do this thing, but then it's like get home, do the same thing, Netflix, whatever, bed, wake up, and kind of that's the norm of but yeah, if you're really about it, then you'll find a way to make it happen, so yeah, don't be normal. So
Don't be normal. That's some good
I
advice.
wish I had like I don't have the stickers or emoji. I'd put up like a normal map or something as like a joke, like don't be normal even though they're all around us.
I remember the shirt I saw at a Walmart back in high school, and it said, "I tried normal once, worst 5 minutes of my life." I don't know why that thought popped in my head, but
yeah, I'm trying to think of some of those, but oh, you know what? I saw a shirt one time, not about being normal, but it just said, "Keep staring, I might do a trick." Yeah, yeah, that one stuck with me. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
well,
Yep,
I'm gonna ask last couple questions before we start wrapping things up. First of which is you already answered, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. Your name in VRChat, where'd it come from, and why do you still use it?
Oh man, I wish this one was like some crazy like had a bunch of lore behind it. But yeah, my name again, it's French, so it's like the French Frank or like Francis, but François, which I just chopped the end off. It's not spelled that way, but I spelled it phonetically because it looked cooler, either in caps or like first letter, and then like camel case or whatever. And then I just put music on it because that's all throughout everything that I've kind of done as either a creator or an artist. Like music has been that underlying thing that's kind of like carried everything along with it. You know, may it be the sound waves or the wavelengths or whatever, you know. It's yeah, and I think if a person I mean, I don't know anyone that I think I've ever met that doesn't listen to music. I think everyone can attest to, like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I like this song, and it's like, no, so you have music in your life, you know. Like we all have that as like a foundational core that we can all. I think that's why music community is so strong, is because it brings everyone together and it locks everyone kind of into this universal, or like puts everyone on the same wavelength, at least for, you know, an event or a festival or something, because they're all listening in unison. So yeah, so that's where I wish it was crazier than that. But funny thing, actually, after a few years of going by SWA, I found out that in the Netherlands, I think it's the Netherlands, SWA actually means friend or like buddy.
Oh,
And so it was like, well, wait a minute, we're all SWA if you think about it. Like, we're all friends, we're all buddies. So yeah, be a SWA to someone today, you know, like, I don't know. It almost sounds like some like promotional tagline, you know, like, donate a SWA today. Like, you know, your donations count, you know, they matter. So yeah. But yep, that's me. SWA music. Yeah.
well, thank you for
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. And the avatar you're in, what why do you use it, and is there anything about it that means anything to you?
Oh man. I saw this avatar a couple years ago and I just liked the style. It like, yeah, it was just kind of resonated. I like angels. Angels are pretty cool.
Hmm.
And contrary to popular belief, I was not like, this is not my goth phase. Even though it is like dark and it's like I could have gone with the white base model, but I was just like, you know what? I like darker. I like kind of like just blending into the shadows and whatnot. But yeah, and it kind of like stylistically kind of looks like me. Not right now. You can't see it. I didn't put the scruff or like the beard I have right now, the mini beard. Um, but yeah, my avatar I've always tried to have look like me, and resemble me. Actually, funny enough, my very first avatar, and a few friends, my very first VRChat friend, he's like, when he wants to freak people out, he tells me to bring it out. I'm not gonna do it now because it's so jarring from looking at this for as long as you've been, for however long we've been talking. But I did a 3D scan of my face, decimated it, and put it on a Vroid body. And one of the first one of the first experiences I had with someone meeting them is I I went up to this group of people and I was like, "Oh, hey guys," and they turn around. And the guy goes, "Ah, what the f is that?" I was like, "Oh man, like, come on, man, this is me. This is what I look like, man. Come on, man." But thankfully that was like, it was like an IRL friend, and like, you know, they were just there, like they were used to like anime girl, you know, dog and whatever, and you know, furry, and then it was, no offense, but
It's all good.
no, actually, I love this avatar. This one's cool. Which one is this again?
This is going to be
It's like
the
a fox
Foxo.
or
This is the Foxo by Odo Goldenpaw. And I apologize if I got that wrong,
Yeah.
but it is the Fox model from Odo Goldenpaw, and honestly, I love it. At least I do personally.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. No, one that sorry, we're I mean, we're still on the avatar subject, but a recent fox avatar that I think is, and this is probably going to be, I've only talked to them like once or twice, and they're really cool. But their name is Heka. Heka. I just know them by Heka, but they made this like incredible looking Star Fox, kind of like old school Robin Hood inspired fox avatar. That is, I think the name of it is like Vixine, but it's like tall, slant. It's such a cool looking fox avatar, and I'm like on the verge of getting it, and like all my friends are gonna probably make fun of me, but I'm like, you know what? I don't care. It's a cool looking avatar, and it's like my vibe, and I'm gonna like do it with the style. Probably put this hair on it. Probably not the wings, but then the suit, and then just like do it up. But yeah, so and then we'll be Fox Brothers, you know. So
Indeed. I think you should wear whatever avatar
Yeah.
makes you happy, regardless if people make fun of you because it's furry or you're a trash can with eyeballs, whatever you decide. As long as you're comfortable, that's all that matters.
right. Yeah, it'll be different. It'll be a nice change for once. It's just like it's either that or the Kitavali. Kitavali is really pretty too.
Kitavali.
So
Indeed.
yeah, they're really pretty. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you
Yeah.
very much for coming on, allowing us to get meet and talk with you. Where can the audience find you if they wish to find you?
Yeah, you can find me if you Google SwaMusic, SWA music. You can find, I think there's enough on the Google, or you can go to swamusic.com. It's kind of scattered on the website, but yeah, I'm on YouTube. I'm on, if you go to my website, there's a releases page if you want to listen to music, or swamusic.com/VRChat, and that has a link directly to my very first music world. Like, yeah, if you want to check out where I came from and see how how bad my blendering was back then. But yeah, it's a good piece, I think, to show once in a while to people that see the stuff I'm creating now and what I created before, because it's like, yeah, if I came from that to this, then you can too, you know. So yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
all of those will be in the description down below. If you kind of scroll down a little bit on your phone or your computer, there's a description thing, and you hit more, and you go into more. You'll see a section called guest links. Everything will be down there for you to click and check out. Everything's all down in the one easy place. So hopefully, future Lion, please put everything in there. No. Do it. But at this point, I just want to ask you, the audience member, a question. And what I'll ask you is, what is something from your childhood that you just can't forget? For me, it's the Pokemon card book I have over in the bookshelf still to this day. And then for the last bit, usually it's something fun or whatever, but I'll leave with a bit of wisdom, I guess is a way to put it. Be sure to talk with everybody. You never know what made them who they are. I want to use a person I met back when I used to take the bus 2 decades ago to work, and I met this homeless person, and most people would kind of walk on by them when you see them and think, oh, gross, they smell funny. But I had a conversation with a gentleman, and he was in his position because he went to war, and he came back and his wife divorced him, and his wife took everything. And he ended up there because the situation is out of his control. So when you go talk with people, converse with them first. You never know what made them who they are. Give them a second chance. And I'll end this with, don't touch my tater tots. Sorry. Napoleon Dynamite. All right.
Come on, Napoleon, give me your tots.
Oh.
No, go get your own. Ugh.
With that said, have a wonderful rest of your day, folks. See you out in the metaverse.